After you order a cat tunnel, you have to have some expectations about what you're going to get and what's going to show up at your property. So we're going to send a cat tunnel to you by freight, which means it's going to come on a truck and it's going to be palletized. You're going to get a pallet that's 4 foot by approximately 8 foot long, and the whole contents of that will be the cat tunnel. When it arrives, you're going to want to either unload the whole pallet or take the pieces off of the pallet and then go ahead and do inventory of everything that's on your order sheet so you can verify that you've received everything. For more information on this, we have a video and the link down below. Behind me, you can see that we've already located the 4 corners of the cat tunnel. So it's already been squared. It's ready to lay out ground posts at this point. We've put down landscape fabric for several reasons. One is the further you can be away with power equipment, the less like you are to put a hole in it or damage the plastic on it. So you can see that we've got landscape fabric all the way around the outside. Also, the area behind me where the cat tunnel is going to be located is now going to be covered in plastic, which means all of that water is going to be shed and you need somewhere for it to go. And you don't want it to come off of the tunnel and erode the ground. So the landscape fabric also aids in doing that. So once the hoops are unloaded, we're down to our ridge pole, our ground posts, and the accessories. So we're going to have plastic in this large box here. We're going to have cross connectors for the ridge pole and the boxes, and an instruction manual with all the hardware, screws, nuts, and bolts. Also the springs for the cat tunnel. Let's go ahead and put this at the front here. We'll lay them all there because we're going to start here and then run to the back. Now you can keep running that ridge pole down there, right? So, you know, there's rhyme and reason when you unload the pallet. If you've never done this before, you don't know how it goes together. But if we're looking at the hoops here and we're looking at the ridge pole, we know that they're going to have to start here and extend to the end of the cat tunnel. Same with our hoops that we've got right here. From a logistics standpoint, laying them out the way that we've done it, you've got less back and forth. You're not having to go back to the pallet, unload more, take it down there. This way it's in an organized manner of unloading. And when you put it together, it makes sense. So you're not having to move things multiple times. Reading it beforehand helps you understand how all this goes together. And it gives you the direction to understand how to unload this. So you're not having to move things around multiple times and your time is more efficient. It makes the build smoother and it makes things go together faster. So on a cat tunnel, the lock channel goes on the doors at both ends. So we're going to unload some here and then we're going to take the rest of it down to the opposite end for the doors on that end of the cat tunnel. Same thing with the spring wire. It's used on both ends. So part of it's going to go to the opposite end of the tunnel. And you can see it didn't take very long. The pallet's now empty. Everything is out on the ground. We've got ground posts being laid out currently at 4 foot increments because that's where we're going to put them into the ground. All right, what we have here is some necessary tools to build a cat tunnel. A lot of these are cordless. They require batteries, so you're going to want to have a couple extra batteries charged or charging while you're using your equipment. Got a circular saw here, a drill which is going to be used for most of it, drill bits and drill drivers, a square, slip joint pliers. We've got some screwdrivers, tape measure which is essential, center punch diagonal cutters, trusty hammer, clamps. So I can't say enough about clamps. These are extra hands, reciprocating saw. All right, these are the 2 boxes that came off of the trailer. We're going to go through the contents of what's in these boxes. This is the strapping material. This is what holds the plastic onto the cat tunnel. This is your manual. You also have a pick list in here. Pick list is going to be an itemized list of what's in the boxes, the content of the pallet as well. These are your door brackets right here. You've got a left and a right. When these get installed, the legs face out. So if you look here, you can see that these are the legs. They're going to face away from the cat tunnel on both ends. We've got 2 different springs in here. It's going to be the springs to hold up the plastic. This is going to be your ground post spring. These 2 are hardware packets. This is going to have nuts and bolts to assemble the cat tunnel. We have cross connectors, the end wall cross connector, so they're different. These go down the center of the cat tunnel. You'll have one of these on each end of the cat tunnel. This is a cleat and this is a bungee strap. These are going to aid in keeping your doors open on the end walls. So to put holes in the ground cover here, we're just using a torch. We're melting it so that it doesn't fray. If you cut an X into it, then that will fray later. So we're just melting a hole into it to insert the ground post into it. I've got a small propane torch here. You can see it's fast and it's easy to go ahead and just put a small hole into the ground cover. This goes on the top of the ground post. It allows you to install the ground post with a sledgehammer without damaging the top of the ground post. You don't want it to mushroom out. You don't want to split it, so that the hoops for the cat tunnel will actually fit over the top of it. All right, so at this point, all the ground posts have been put in the ground, and we're about to start assembling hoops, and then we'll install the hoops on top of the ground posts. So with the cat tunnel system, it's a little bit different than our standard greenhouses. The hoops go over the top of the ground post versus inside. Other cat tunnel systems on the market use rebar as a ground post. We use a galvanized tube for our ground posts, and 6 inches are out of the ground and there's 24 inches in the ground. Using a tube instead of a piece of rebar allows you the option to run a bolt through it and actually attach the cat tunnel to the ground. The hoops come in 3 sections. Those 3 sections are in a bundle, and they come wrapped together. So you don't want to open all the bundles. You want to open each bundle individually and assemble that single hoop and then install it. So we've got 2 different springs that come with it. So this is going to be your ground post spring. This is what the strapping material is going to go through and go over the hoops to attach your plastic with. And then this right here is the hoop spring. The ears face down on it. And this allows you to, when you pinch it in, it takes the tension off and it allows you to slide it up or down. And this is how you'll ventilate the cat tunnel. So as you raise it up, you'll raise the plastic up with it, and then you'll allow airflow to go through the tunnel itself.
Up next, we're going to put the hoops on the ground post. It's easily done with 2 people. We had 4, so it made for quick work. It was also super hot, so we all had to wear gloves. It's a very satisfying part of the build, so take your time and enjoy it.
So now that the hoops are up, we're going to talk about a couple of different connectors that we have. We've got an end wall cross connector, and then we've got the regular cross connector for the ridge pole. This ships in what we call an open position, so you can actually slide it over the hoop. The way you see it here is in an open position, and after you install it, you'll crimp it down on the end wall hoop. The regular cross connector for your ridge pole, it's going to go over the hoop, and then your ridge pole will be installed inside of it, just like so. So with the hoops installed over the ground posts, we're going to take a center punch about 1 inch off the ground. Center punch so our drill bit doesn't want to slip off of there. Then we're going to take a 1/4 inch drill bit, drill a hole through the ground post and the hoop. Got a 2-inch bolt with a washer, a lock washer, and a nut. We'll install that through. Do a little tap here. Washer, lock washer, and nut. And tighten that down, and your hoop is secure to the ground post. It's not going to come off of there. Also, again, our bolt's going along the length of the tunnel. We don't want it sticking out this way. Plastic's going to go on the outside. You don't want plastic to get caught on it. All right, with the cat tunnel system, we've got 2 door brackets. So this is the left one, this is the right one. So if you're looking at it, this is going to be on the right hand side. This is going to be on the left hand side of the cat tunnel. They mount on the outside of the hoop like so, and the bottom of the leg points out. This is what your doors are going to mount to. Take a drill with a 5/16 drill bit, a couple of number 10 screws, and then we're going to attach this to the outside of the hoop. Try to get the leg lined up with the exterior of the greenhouse.
So the reason we have these drill mark stickers is because you need a perfectly center and straight hole going through the door hoop so it doesn't bind up in the bracket. The purpose of the sticker is to give you an exact measurement into where to drill from one side and then come around and drill through the other. You're not drilling all the way through center. If you drill from the outside on each of the circles as indicated in this video, you'll have a perfectly straight, non-binding hole.
Now that we've drilled the door, we're going to take a 2-inch bolt. We're going to insert it from the outside of the door bracket through the holes that we drilled in the door. We're going to put a washer, a lock washer, and a nut on it.
All right, so whenever we put on these cleats, notice that they do have a hole in there. We're going to run rope in there in just a second. So to make it easier for us, we have put a clamp and clamped the end wall hoop, the middle door, and then the bottom or the outer door. We're going to skip the middle because we're going to tie that off separately. We're going to punch our holes. All right, you'll notice that on the cleats we use a 1.5 inch 5/16 hex head. Put that in there just a little bit longer. All right, so now that both cleats are on, I'm going to take off the clamp, And I'm going to drop the first hoop. We're going to rest that on the ground. And then we're going to put in this line that's going to support the middle hoop. Once the plastic is on, the plastic kind of supports itself, but during the installation process, we want to put a little bit of support on there. And as the plastic eventually elongates, you know, with use and wind and that kind of thing, just having a little extra support is a great thing. So we're going to tie that off through the middle of the cleat, and I'm going to come about 45 degrees. There's no sense in getting all haywire about exactly how much it is. It really doesn't matter, but I'm looking for just a little bit north of 45, because as we do this top part during rain events, this is going to take the brunt of the water coming down. And so let's just make that a little bit more narrow. And as you see, when we get finished, water is going to come down this V that we're also going to secure with the line and give it like a little channel. So I'm just going to run this through a couple of times. You should have plenty of line left over from the original build. And just like everything on this build, I like to leave a little tail just in case I ever have to make an adjustment later on. You can tack this back down. This side's ready, now we'll do the next.
All right, so we're going to install the lock channel. On the cat tunnel, you start a little bit differently. We're going to start just above the door bracket and then work our way over the top of the hoop. 3/4 number 8 screws here, 1/4 inch nut driver. Line the lock channel up on the center of the hoop. There's grooves in the center of the lock channel that help keep the screw in place. Tighten it down. Don't over tighten it, you don't want to strip it out.
And the self-tapping screws will go about every 12 to 16 inches. Next, we're going to put on the plastic. We're going to start by putting 2 wiffle ball size balls in the corners of the plastic about 2 foot over and 2 foot up. That gives us something to put the rope around to give us surface tension. So as we pull the plastic over the hoops, it doesn't tear out the corners. We're also going to use a painter's pole with a 1-inch cap over the threads taped down to help poke the plastic over the hoops, as sometimes it gets caught. It's best to go against the wind instead of with the wind to help lift over the hoops instead of pushing onto the hoops. Note that if you do this in the morning, which is actually the best time to do it, some dew on the hoops may cause the plastic to stick a little bit, and simply release that surface tension with the painter's pole. It's advised that 2 people pull from each end and another person help push the plastic over with the painter's pole. And once you get going, you'll find that it's actually very easy and happens very quick. You're going to pull the plastic so that the label is facing on the inside and is running parallel with the ridge pole. That puts the plastic in the center, and then you're going to square up so the ends drop evenly from one side to the other. All right, when you're putting up plastic where it says inside, that's what you're looking for, and that represents the center line of the plastic. So it can be a little off side to side at this point, and then when we actually install it, we can make the final adjustments. But that way, your whole plastic is kind of evened up. So as you're pulling, you're going to see these creases form. And so what he's going to do is just pull down and out to the diagonal just a little bit to pull those creases out. And we're going to work those out all the way down. Same thing over here. You see the creases forming? We're going to pull down and out. And as we stretch that, they'll go away. All right, so as you work your way down, what you're going to want to do is continue to pull a diagonal and out. We're going to keep pulling tension on the plastic. And once you get down here, it helps to take the plastic and kind of form it to the shape of where we're going. Remember, this is all going to be cut off, so if it's bunched, don't worry about it. This will all be trimmed up after we secure the batten strap back and forth. And you want to pull it as tight as possible, but you're not trying to like overdo it, because when you put the batten straps on, it's going to get tighter and tighter and tighter. You'll see that in the next step. We're going to come down, and once we hit the top of the green door bracket, we're going to cut that off. So I've seen a lot of people try to use tin snips, but you have to keep in mind that it's the right tool for the right job. This is made to cut sheets of thin a tin or aluminum. This is a steel core spring, and so I find that the diagonal cutters cutting at the very end of this works the best. Then you'll trim the excess plastic on either side down to about 18 inches. Next, we're going to install the batten strapping. We're going to start on one end, and we're going to tie the rope to the end wall carabiner, and then we're going to throw the rope across to the second hoop on the other side. We're then going to crisscross, throwing back over to the opposite, using the painter's pole to help grab it. And again, you can use the same wiffle ball to give your line a little bit of weight without having to worry about punching a hole in the plastic. And you're going to run that all the way down one side. Then you're going to start on the opposite side that you started with, tie a line to the end wall hoop, and crisscross, forming an X in the middle near the ridge pole as you're going down the other side of the tunnel. One person's going to throw the ball over, the other person's going to catch it, run it through the opposite hoop carabiner until you reach the end. Then you're going to temporarily tie it off. All right, it's time to put the greenhouse film on top of the doors. We're going to do this in two different ways. One, I'm going to walk you through the diagrams that are inside of the instruction manual, and then we're going to do it all over again from a first-person point of view out in the field. So what I want you to think about is these black lines are going to represent the hoops that make the tunnel. The blue line at just over a 45-degree angle is the first door hoop, and the orange line is the second door hoop, or the outermost door hoop that actually lays on the ground. The green L is the green L bracket that we already installed. The purple lines are the batten strap and how they form. And then the gray line on top and connecting all of the points is basically what a side profile view of the top of the plastic will look like once you're finished. This picture illustrates the hoop, and the blue line illustrates that we need to fold the plastic underneath each other all the way down so that rain does not get caught up in the folds. This picture illustrates that from the hoop to the first door bracket, and then again from the first door bracket to the bottom door bracket, that the plastic is not necessarily going to be in straight lines and a little narrower at the first part that you install, and ever so slightly widens out to the first door hoop and then again to the second door hoop. This also takes into account the folding of the plastic underneath each other, again, so the rain does not get caught in the pockets. So this view illustrates an end wall on the bottom with batten strap making the X's, and that the first door hoop will be put on separately by itself from the second door hoop, and the plastic is a little bit longer and wider than both the door space and the width of the tunnel. The red box illustrates the cat tunnel with the plastic already put on the main tunnel, and so we're just focusing on the door at this point from that end wall to the first door hoop. The blue line represents the first door hoop, and the little V's indicate where wiggle wire will go inside of the channel. So we're going to start at the end wall, and we're going to install the lock channel starting at the top of the hoop, working our way from the top to the left or the right, and then going back to the top and going to the opposite side, right or left, just to install it one straight, nice, tight line at the end wall. We're then going to deploy the first door hoop and set that in place just a little bit higher than 45 degrees with the batten strap that we previously talked about when we mounted the cleats. Starting at the top, we're going to pull straight and wiggle wire the middle piece of plastic flat just for a foot or two. As the plastic curves around, working our way from right to left or left to right, it's going to naturally crease, and we're going to follow those natural crease lines anywhere from 4 to 6 inches wide as we fold under and make the pleats all the way down to the ground. We'll then go back up to the middle and do the same for the opposite side. Once you have wiggle wire installed and that door standing free, we're going to trim out and basically start a new starting point at the first door hoop. The second door hoop will also be wider and longer than needed, so you can trim it out. And it's the same process. At the first door hoop, install one straight piece starting at the top and going right to left, and then going left to right, and then pulling as tight as you can. Install the center of the plastic to the center of the ground or second door hoop, and start your pleats as a series of folding under each other from the center to the left or the right of the cat tunnel, and then starting back at the center, repeat that step left to right. Once the wiggle wire is installed, you'll trim it out, and referring back to the first picture, your plastic is going to look like this, and then you can run the first door and the second door batten strapping to put those pleats in to keep the plastic tight. Now let's take a look at it of what it actually looks like in the field. All right, folks, it's the next morning. We have the plastic on, we have one of the doors up, and we wanted to take our time and show you how to do these doors. So at this point, we need to trim the plastic from the roof line, and then we're going to basically put on the plastic that forms the two-piece door set. This is a little bit different than anything you've seen before in that we're going to start with the top, put it on regular, but as we go down, we're going to be forming pleats that face downward, so away from the rain as we go down and then we're going to secure it with line similar to how we did the ribs in between. All right, now that the cleats are out, it's time to put on the plastic, but we're going to start by trimming off the roof line, give ourselves some working room. All right, so before we put the plastic up on the two parts of the door, I want you to remember that you're going to put that top edge, we're going to lift it up and come straight up and put that in the lock channel just like you would any other piece of plastic. There's not going to be any pleats in the beginning. Then we're going to basically put it on the other side of the bow, come right into the middle, and then start folding and pleating as it calls for. I can't really give you a pleat every 3 or 4 feet. Every tunnel is going to be a little bit different. Everybody's going to be a little different, but I'll show you indications as to when these start bunching up. Then you're going to just fold it over and go right over the top. Don't worry about the multiple layers in the channel. It can handle it. Now, to help orient yourself, I want you to pull this into the tunnel. You'll notice that this inside is going to be facing inside. So when we pick this up and go straight, we're already going to be oriented correctly. Also keep in mind that this lettering is in the center of the plastic, so we want to put it in the center of the hoop, or you can use ridgepole as an indication of that's where we're going to start. That's going to give us enough plastic to go on both sides. So check it out. All right, we're going to put the first hoop up, and we're just going to secure it so we don't have to drag it over later. I'm going to take my ladder and I'm going to put it dead center. I'm going to work from this side of the ladder and use this other side to kind of help guide the plastic straight up. All right, so before I head up, I'm going to grab a piece of wiggle wire. I'm going to grab the plastic in the center where the logo is and go up. All right, now that we're up here, you'll notice that we have the end wall hoop and we have the middle hoop. We're not tying into the middle hoop. That's going to be the one that comes down that we tie into next. So we're going to go right into the same channel that the roof line is on. You'll notice that you'll see the inside markers for the roof line, and we're going to match the inside marker to make sure that the inside's on the correct side. So we're just going to come out just a little bit, right dead center in the middle. And we're going to start plastic. We don't have to worry about keeping it super tight at this point. We're just getting it in. But we are going to take out any folds to make sure that we have a nice straight edge all the way across. All right, now that the top part is put on, we need to bring the second hoop or the second part of the door down to that predisposed stop that we did with the twine. Once that's there, or to get it there, we're gently going to pull this down to kind of help stretch out the plastic. Once it's set, again, we're going to start in the middle, start working our way down. But the difference is on this time, as we start getting bunched up, we'll be making a series of small pleats on either side. All right, so now that the hoop is out, the plastic is loose. At this point, you may be concerned that we're going to have water pooling up and things like that. But keep in mind that as we pull on this plastic, it's going to keep it tight, and those pleats are going to allow it to be maintained tightly all the way down to this crease. It'll be tight, and then we're going to run the same type of batten strap here up the middle to put basically a gutter in the middle of it once it's tight. So as rain comes down, it's going to funnel and just come straight down. All right, so to put this plastic on, we're going to continue to orient the label with the dead center of the post. We're going to keep this pretty tight, put the first one on, and you're going to notice some pleats start to form. Here in a second, we're going to show you how to handle those pleats. So this side's already been tacked up. I'm going to keep things tight, and as I do, I'm going to pull the hoop to me. All right, so as I'm working my way down, you're going to notice that some of this stuff is still pretty loose. Let's take a look. But it's folded to the outside. So we're keeping it as tight as we can. Just know, and I just don't want you to worry about this for right now, because as we continue to make it tighter and as this gets pulled, it's going to work itself down, and then we're going to put that strap over to form the gutter. So you may be concerned about it, but I promise you it's going to be all right. Just keep making your pleats. The plastic will kind of tell you where you need to make those. There's no set, hey, this has to be a 3-inch pleat or a 1/2 inch pleat or a 2-inch pleat. Just let the plastic guide you into when you have to pleat those. Okay, as we're getting closer to this kind of apex, wherever the triangle is, We're going to continue to pull it straight. We're going to run that all the way down. Now if you'll notice, without pleating, you can pull those ripples out and keep the plastic pretty tight. That's what's going to allow that guideline to act as the gutter once it's up. And take it all the way home. So we're going to do two things. We're going to trim off the excess plastic because we have put those pleats on this end. And if we continue with just that single piece of plastic, it's already going to be bunched up and it's going to cause us troubles as we work the plastic down on the next set, and it's going to mess up those pleats. We're trying to have as clean of a line as possible. So we're going to trim that off. We're going to trim off the excess from the end wall hoop, and then we are going to take this line that's going to form that gutter that we keep talking about, throw it on a wiffle ball, throw it across, and we're going to tighten that down at the same snap clamps that we use to secure the bigger plastic. It's the very last one on the end wall clamp. Okay, now that the line is over, I like to leave quite a long tail, because what we're going to do is, as we secure it to that snap hook, we're going to put a little bit of tension, and you start seeing that divot forming in the middle, that V shape. That's what the rain is going to hit. It flattens down the pleats that we put earlier that were kind of loose, that I was worried people were going to worry about. And now that that has a place to go, all the wire is going to come down. Now, I want to come out with a significant tail, and that way if we ever have to make an adjustment, we have enough at the end to do so. So if we think of the plastic as forming a door, these two pieces here are the trim parts. So I'm going to flatten it out a little bit. I'm going to come straight across on the ground, and then I'm going to follow the lock channel to trim it out. Okay, so there's our door. Now if you're sitting there already concerned about this little flap, we can tape it down, we can just leave it open. Remember, expectations at this point should be, this is a polytunnel, it's a cat tunnel, it's not an airtight structure, it's not a greenhouse, it's not a hoop house. This whole thing has flaps all the way around, so don't let that stop you or concern you. But now that we have this open, we can go ahead and ever so slightly make that pleat all the way across, come in, and we're going to come up with our tail. And guys, we're not tying a submarine to the dock here. All we have to do is just keep it tight, and I would not tie this super tight because we may want to open it up later on. This is semi-temporary, but look, there's the ground post spring, the snap clamp. This one's going through the rest of the tunnel, this one's going to the door, and on the next door we're going to do the same. So let's trim this guy out. Okay, we just trimmed this piece. The door has gone up and down just like we thought. Need a little adjustment, keep it a little tighter. You're going to find that as you operate these doors the first few times, everything's going to kind of settle in, stretch out a little bit. It's in the sun, all completely normal. So once we get that undone, we're just going to pull it again, keep it a little tight. I want it as close to possible before we install this plastic, because the tension of this plastic is going to determine the overall tension of the whole door. So we're going to replicate the finished tension as much as possible here. All right, the first door piece has been trimmed out. The gutter line in the middle has been adjusted. Now it's time to put the final piece onto this cat tunnel, which is the second part of the door between here and there. Now remember, we just cut an arch out of there, so we have to find basically the dip in that to get a straight line. It's okay if we have a lot of tail on either side because we're going to trim it out, and you do have a piece long enough to go from here to there and then make all your pleats and everything. So just like we did before, we're going to find the center of the plastic, we're going to pull that label straight up, and just like we did with the end hoop, we're going to start here on that middle hoop that makes up the door, and we're going to go straight across, no pleats, and then we're going to come down, and what we did up there on the ladder we're going to do on the ground. Okay, so we're attached to the middle door bow, and now we're going to put the last little bit on. And so what we're going to do is we're going to continue on with the label. The middle of the hoop is right here. They're joined together so you can clearly see it. And we're going to keep this as tight as possible here. And then we're going to work our way down, and we're going to let those pleats that form naturally tell us where to make the pleats and how big to make them. All right, so you can see the seam of this hoop. That's the middle of the bow. Here's the label. So we're going to center it up real good. And what I like to do is I like to just get about a hand worth under there and prop it up. Once I spring wire that in, it's going to drop down, pull a little bit, take the tension out. So we're going to really stuff it in there. Working on the ground, you're a little bit more encumbered, but it's only 2 doors, you'll be all right. So take a look. We've got this nice long piece. It's already forming a little gutter. So I'm going to, at this point, go ahead and take out some slack. I'm going to pull up. I'm going to form the first pleat. It's just going to be 2 to 3 inches. And I'm really going to tuck it in underneath that. And I'm not going to worry about all that because I'm fixing to pull it. So I got a nice tight pleat here. I'm going to go across, force it in there just a little bit, not much. So that's our first pleat. Now we've got a second one forming. Around the same size. Again, I'm going to lift up and pull, really give us some tension. And you can see how much that tucks under there. And remember, just like we showed you a minute ago, that line's going to come through here and really flatten that down in operation. We're pretty consistent right in here, roughly every 16 inches or so, same size pleats. Yours may be a little different, that's okay. And you're going to notice that as we go further and further out, the size of the plastic diminishes that's actually used for the roof, so less pleats will probably be necessary. First one, it looks like we'll have either a smaller or very little pleat. All right, so this half of the door has been done. I just wanted to show you the pleats, how it kind of funnels out and turns over. Again, we know that the rain's going to be coming this way, so all of them have the flap facing towards the sky. And again, once we put that line in there, it's going to create a natural gutter to smash all those down and let the water run right off. So now we're going to do the other side, but instead of the flap going this way, the flap's going to go that way, facing down to the ground. Okay, as you start this, it's not necessarily going to be a mirror image, pleat for pleat, but you probably will have an early one as it's already starting to form. This is where we started last time, so we're going to start here, go that way. Just keep watching the lines, the plastic will tell you. Got to be zen and one with the plastic. Okay, so we just pleated the second side, and you have an option here. Remember, with anything you do in farming, it's most often the very first time you do something. You should not think that you're an expert in it just yet. It's going to take a couple of tries. So before you trim it out, if you're not happy with how tight this is, or if you don't think it's going to go down, or that you found that maybe it could be better, hey, this is the last thing you have to do on this thing. So if you want to be able to not worry about it moving forward, go ahead and redo it, because now you know how to do it. You've done it once. You may have done it a second time with the other tunnel. So before you trim this out, just go, am I happy with this? Did I learn something along the way? And if so, go ahead and restring it if you like. I'm happy with this side. I know it looks loose, but I want you to think about a couple of things. On a traditional cat tunnel, you'll have that T-post out there, and all of this plastic would look very similar in that bunching action of getting it down to that T-post, tying it up. It's the very same thing. The difference here is it's attached on 2 different door frames, and it has these gutters in there to keep it from flapping about in the wind. And then the whole thing about our tunnel is the ability to open it up and fully vent in one fluid motion without all that tying and untying. It's much easier to get in and do your harvest without having to like duck under anything. So yes, it's a different tunnel. Yes, this is a new skill set. Take the time now to fix it if you want. We're happy. So we're going to cut this thing out, trim it, and then we're going to run our wires. And then the very last thing we do is show you how to open up the doors, tie them off. Now to do the gutter line or the line that makes sure everything's pressed down on this side, remember we have a much larger surface area, but if you look at the angle of it, rain's going to hit that and almost immediately slide down. Don't worry about it catching here. It's going to dribble out. It's also going to be flat. It's going to be all right. So the same snap hook that we used for the long one, and then the middle door, I have enough on this one. I do want it doubled up on this one, just makes me feel better. So I'm taking the twist out of the line as I'm coming. I'm gonna run it through the snap clamp. And again, check it. Check right here as I pull. So I'm just gonna pull it tight a little bit, you notice it's just barely coming off the ground. To me, that's an indication of it's going to stretch out just a couple inches, especially the first couple of days once the heat is on it. So I'm just going to come back around, secure it twice. Okay, run it through the line, give it a good crank down. I'm not going to get too crazy with this knot. I assure you we're going to make an adjustment after we open it up a couple of times. Establish a baseline more than anything else. But even now you can see that the pleats are held down. Now it's time to open this thing up for the first time. We just pick it up in the center and walk our way down one side. At the cleats, we then just roll up the plastic. You just tie that off, go the other side. You'll notice I'm rolling it up to the inside. You can take a clamp, roll it up for the day, and just clamp it right here. It's whatever you want to do. We're going to show you that in the next video, which is like operating this thing. That's it.